Welcome to another edition of Inspired Stories, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes, how they've overcome adversity, and explore current challenges they're facing.
Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codaspoti, and today's guest is Stephanie Johnson, CEO of Acklen Avenue, who is your strategic partner in digital transformation, delivering agile, custom software solutions that revolutionize how you operate, engage customers, and drive new opportunities. They emphasize a unique approach to agile software development, ensuring future-ready solutions that are tailored to meet your technology needs and business goals. Stephanie was recently promoted to CEO in August 2024, taking over from the previous CEO and founder. She has been instrumental in the company's growth and management alongside other leaders like Jennifer Fields and Evan Hensley. With her leadership, Acklen Avenue has strengthened its company culture and values, fostering innovation and transparency that has truly aligned the team internally and externally. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefitsagency.com. Now back to our guest today, the CEO of Acklen Avenue, Stephanie Johnson. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
I appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
So, Stephanie, what first attracted you to the IT industry?
Oh, I remember I did my internship at Howard University Hospital. My degree was in healthcare administration and planning. When I did my internship there, I just wanted to be in their IT division to see it's like a big hospital. How are they all doing what they were doing? At the time, it's like, I think my job was like setting up emails and figuring like Exchange at the time. But I loved the technology with healthcare. My first love was healthcare. And then I wanted to see how technology was going to impact healthcare. And so that's kind of what I surrounded myself with. I would go to like all of the HCA tech innovators conferences back in the day, and where they were like, changing how the patients were interacting with tech while they were patients in their hospital. And, now we have where you can come in and you can go to your room and later on they'll get your information. Those were all like innovations at the time that I thought were so interesting. So I wanted to see where it was going to go.
So how did your path eventually bring you to the opportunity at Acklen Avenue?
Oh, man. I feel like without trying to, I have been working at organizations where they are startup. So they're a startup or a startup mentality. And over time, when I first became a COO, which is my background as a COO, is where I would just kind of slot into those companies, take away their operational debt, and eventually they would sell. So for every big company that I'd been at, they eventually sold. And so that's kind of how I think I ended up at Acklen. Was I have this real need to be effective. I want to not just work somewhere. I want to be effective. I want to help. So if I see, like, the bigger the problem you have in your organization, then I'm the person that is going to probably be knocking on your door. But they found me. They had a lot of operational debt, and they seemed like they were just at the cusp of getting that fixed, and then being able to continue to grow the company. Like, it was kind of not growing. It was kind of year over year doing its thing. But a lot of it was because of the operational debt. And that just attracted me so much, along with my founder now, the CEO at the time. I really interviewed CEOs for my next job, and I really liked him. I liked how he thought about his employees. And I knew that, like, talking to him, he was ready for a change. That's important, is like to know that a CEO is ready for a change.
What does operational debt mean, and how did you help with that?
It means that the departments may not be operating as effectively and efficiently like we are I think my secret sauce and talent is to walk into a place and understand where the gaps are. And so when I say operational debt, I mean that they're not operating as efficiently as they could to be able to, keep money from walking out the door, to be provide optimal service, to have optimal contracts, to deliver optimally. Like those are very important things, but they stretch across the organization and they require all the departments to be aligned. And so it was a lack of alignment, in addition to the things that I just mentioned.
So, would it be accurate to say that part of what drew you to Acklen was the ability to not only help Acklen itself, but the ability to help its collection of clients, be able to
Yes.
bring sort of your operational expertise to an even wider swath of companies?
Yes, that is the thing that excites me about being an operations person. But in my experience too, your CEO has to be ready for that kind of change, that kind of integration, because I am a change agent. When I come into organizations, there will be change, most definitely. But yeah, it was important that he was ready for that, and he knew it, and he was very self aware about the thing that he needed, which was somebody like me.
And you also said that you really liked the way that he treated employees. Can you talk more about that?
The culture at Acklen is probably one of the biggest the biggest pulls for people, for me, for my senior leadership team, and everybody else who works with us and for us. He just, whenever I talk to people there, they loved working there. They loved working there through struggle, through whatever. He just had this way about attracting talent to the company, and they stayed. And so, like, he had a lot of longevity on with the people that I talked to, the people that were on his team at the time that I joined. Like, I just felt it when I talked to different folks. I felt it. And we're near shore, so the majority of our employees are in Latin America and other places. But that LATAM, they love Acklen, and they loved his leadership around it. He thinks about people. The reason that he started that job too, that his company at the time, was he just wanted to provide some people a place where they like to go and like to work, because he didn't have that. And I just kind of like that. It's a simple reason to start something that turned out to be a great in the culture.
Okay, so let's delve into what Acklen Avenue does.
So Acklen Avenue, it provides our clients with high performing agile teams. And we also provide staff aug, and we do that with nearshore resources. And so if you have development needs or you have a backlog, you know that it takes you a lot of money and time to build those teams. Get your BA, get your Scrum Masters, get your Dev, your DevOps, your UX, UI design. You can come to us. We will scope out your project, tell you how long it would take, give you a really, really close estimate. And it's already a built team. They're used to working together. And we just kind of set that down onto your project. We work with your product owner, and we do whatever project work that you need, whatever development work that is needed, including like backlog. It could be old tech. It could be putting in new tech. So we can do that across all industries, but we really concentrate on fintech, healthcare, manufacturing, if we were to narrow it down.
And are most of your clients then here in the States?
Yes. Yes, the majority are here in the States.
And what else could you say about them that kind of, what makes somebody an ideal fit for you outside of kind of the three industries that you mentioned? Is there revenue size or employee count or?
No, here's the thing. I think this is the most interesting thing about what we do is we talk to people when they're trying to get money for their idea. So we can help you by clarifying the idea that you have and giving you a really good sound estimate of time and money, to where then you take that and then you go ask for that money and you get that money, and then you come back and then we develop the idea even further and give you an MVP, or like get you into a MVP, into a stage 1 or a stage 2 of your product. So we have clients that are like that. And then we have clients that are running, running old tech but they have their backlog is so big and they're not going to be changing that anytime soon. So we put that team in to help them with all of the technology needs that they have with that particular thing. And then we have someone who is like, hey, I've got the money. I'm ready to go, and anything in between. So we can help anybody who are in like a pre stage where they're like trying to get that money for their product to people who are already, they have their stuff established, but they need help updating it, anything in the backlog. Yes.
And as I'm hearing you talk, I don't hear anything that says, oh, we only focus on these platforms or this programming language. It sounds like there's a lot of flexibility to go and find the talent that's needed, regardless
Yes.
of what the platforms or the existing tech stack looks like.
That is Acklen's like key, is they can put those teams together. We have a really big like resource pool. And so we're not trying to preach to you about what tech you need. We will advise you if there's something that we think is going to change out and you're going to have to come back later. But it's not that, but we do use agile methodology on top of everything that we're doing.
Describe agile methodology for those folks who aren't familiar with it.
I would describe agile, and I'm not an agile like an agilist. Jennifer Fields is our chief delivery officer, and she's the one who's like taught me and is the most knowledgeable. But it's basically, the way I would describe it is, it's a way for us to be iterative and efficient and scalable, so that we're not just stuck to like we're not taking a set time to say we're going to finish it in this amount of time. We're not doing it that way. We are flexible in the way that we do things. Something comes up, we pivot. So it makes it iterative for us. So that's the best way I can describe it, although she probably has a way better explanation than I do.
So we mentioned in the intro that you were promoted to CEO earlier this year. So first of all, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So now as you step into this new role, obviously you've been there for a while and you've affected great change. But as you step into this new role of CEO, what are some of your first priorities?
My very first priority when I stepped into this role is to make sure that the culture didn't suffer. And it was very
Not that
important.
you wanted to change it. You
Didn't
wanted
want
to keep
change
it.
it. I wanted to keep it. And so it was months probably before we were going to make this announcement. And I talked to Colin Callahan, who's our founder. And I know that was really important to him. And not that, it's not that these things were not happening, but one thing that I did do is I started to learn more Spanish. And so now when I have my company-wide meetings, when we had the announcement, I did them in Spanish first.
Oh, wow.
89% of our team are in a LATAM country. And so it was a way for me to say that I see you, you're very important to me. And do my intros or whatever I was talking about. I do those in Spanish first, and then I do them in English second. And I think the feedback that we've gotten from that is that they talk about it, although I have to hear it from other people because they don't tell me, but they really love the fact that I'm making those efforts. And it was really important for me, although in the beginning, very nerve-wracking because I know I was probably saying some things that were not Spanish.
Your Spanish was not fluent quite yet.
No, and I keep working on it. The team is just, I have so many people that I can practice with too, but I think that it came from my heart. It's something I wanted to do, and I think it's gone a long way just so that they know that, I'm invested in the company and they're important to the company and to me.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around what makes Acklen unique, special, different. And I think I'm putting together, one, there's a really great culture. People just love coming to work there. Two, you guys, you're sort of platform agnostic. You can advise the client on, where you think that they should be, but you can support anything. And then three, you use nearshore talent. So it probably opens up a whole nother pool of talent that a lot of other agencies aren't able to bring to the table, and able to do it in a more cost-effective way.
Absolutely. Those are really great reasons why what makes us unique. is just, it's our people, it's our ability to pull talent together, and it's also our ability to like be a place where people want to be and want to work. You were talking about differentiators that makes us unique, and I mean, I think that what for me, the thing that stood out, and I've worked with Indian teams before. I've worked with other Latin American countries in Colombia and Bogota and Mexico City. But the thing here is Acklen puts a lot of time and energy into the community in which it sources its talent. And so the majority of our talent comes from a particular area, but we're very vested there. Like it's what they used to call the heart of Acklen. And so the story that intrigued me about Acklen when I didn't know that I was going to be coming here was that story about how one of the founders went there on a mission trip, met his wife, and he kept coming back, right? Kept coming back. And that's kind of how Acklen started to recruit from that area. And so, like, even though we can't be there with our team, we spend so much time in wanting them to be together. And so we invest in a lot of get-togethers for them, but we invest a lot of our time and our energy in making sure that they feel like they're part of the organization. Where I feel like I didn't do that with other assignments that I had. But I know that we can't compete with the rupee in terms of cost, but in terms of talent and the ability to be able to connect with U.S. companies and we're not yes people. Our communication is outstanding. We will tell you, our teams will tell you if they don't think a thing will work, but they're highly polite, but they'll still tell you. I think that's what sets us apart. It's just that community involvement and how we really do double down on the folks in those areas where we're recruiting from.
So you're kind of touching on what my follow-up question is, which is how do you establish and then maintain such a strong company culture when you are geographically spread out? I get that a lot of your folks in Latin America are in the same geographical region, but it sounds like maybe they're not all reporting to the same office every day.
Oh, yeah.
So,
no. Acklen has been remote since it started 15 years ago, which I think in itself is kind of like forward thinking and amazing and having the formula in which it works, right? It works out really well. I think we have a tremendous human resources group headed up by Chelsea Gonzalez. And we have get-togethers. We just recently ended up the year. We have these quarterly meetings. We have monthly just gathers where we're just playing games like crazy, like online games. And somehow they just make it work where it works not only for everybody in Latin America and other places where we have people, it works for us here in the US to be able to connect and see folks more often. And we have such great turnout. And we're just goofy together online. Like it's a very family type, even though some people hate the term if I say family, but it's a very close knit group. And we welcome, like how we welcome people into our organization too, is like to make them a part of this. We announce a lot of things. We announce our wins when we win. We announce losses when we lose. Like it's trying to just keep them informed so that they feel a connection. But we've done that just remotely by meeting weekly and quarterly and for holidays and things like that. And also acknowledging their holidays along with our own.
what is a message to Garcia, and why is this important to you, Stephanie?
A friend of mine that's like one of my mentors, but also helps us in business. His name is Ryan Villanueva. He's with Cruise and Co. He's just become a friend to me, and so like he's there partly because it can be a little lonely where you don't have someone to talk to. So I talked to him about a lot of things, and I think this one day I was sharing with him how I was feeling a level of frustration and a level of of deep gratitude for the types of people that we have been able to get on our senior leadership team. And so it's like this, I'm trying to explain to him, like, if I were to hire this person, I've got to have them, not have me tell them what to do, A, B, and C. And what I try to do in my leadership style is to encourage people to make mistakes, because in the mistake, in the failure are lessons that you need to learn, and you need to dig deeper. And so if you're not bringing up problems, I always am like, no, we always have problems. You have to bring some problems in here. But I'm also an advocate of, like, look at root causes. But I'm trying to explain this to him. And he says, I've got the perfect thing. You've got to read this letter to Garcia. And it's about a man. His higher up says, hey, I need you to go find somebody and get this message to Garcia. It was Garcia that he was looking for. He sends the guy out. The guy asks no questions. He just takes the letter, disappears for a couple of months, finds Garcia, hands him a letter, comes back, he says he's successful. And I'm like, that kind of rolls it up for me. It's like, he's probably made a mistake along the way of his journey, but just go for it. I trust you to go make the decisions. They may not be 100% completely right, but I trust you to go. If I feel like I gotta, like, say, if you come to me and say, well, how do I get started? It's like immediately I'm just like, no, you just got to go out there and, like, make the mistake, do what you think is best. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be fine. And then if you have a concern or you learn something, come back with that, but be bold. Like,
so when you're looking to build out and support your senior leadership team, these are the kinds of folks that you want along your side. People that, aren't saying, hey, Stephanie, I need a step-by-step 10-point list of how to execute this next project. No, you want to be able to sort of discuss the big picture vision with them, and then, they're going to go run with it.
Yes, that's the senior leadership team that I have.
Okay.
And so while we're, how this came up was like, I haven't replaced myself as the chief operations officer. And I felt like, man, that's going to be so hard because I have this whole way. But I also know that somebody is better than me. And they're going to, like, so when someone's asked me what type of person, I was just kind of running through. It's hard somebody to ask me that and come up with these, I need them to be all of these things. But I do realize, too, having sat in the seat, I have these biases that I don't need to have. But, like, the core of that, they were asking what's the core, is that I know that the team will communicate with me when they need to communicate with me. But once we decide on something and we're off to the races, they are going to execute on that without asking, like, how do I get started? What do I need to do? All of these things, right? Comes up in the discussions that we have anyway.
Are there a small handful of folks from this team that you would like to mention here?
Oh, absolutely. I love that you asked me that question, because coming up as a COO myself, I feel like a COO, and now I'm a CEO. One of the things that I was like, man, it'd be nice if my CEO mentioned the senior leadership team. So I'm going to do that. So I would like to shout out Jennifer Fields, who is our Chief Delivery Officer, Dan McCarthy, who is our Chief Finance Officer, Chelsea Gonzalez, who is our CPO, our Chief People Officer, Lionel Johnson, no relation, is our CRO. Fernanda Mesquita is our Business Operations Strategist. So you're going to make it to where I'm going to forget someone, and I'm, like, deathly afraid I'm forgetting some of my senior leadership team, and I'm feeling like I am. Who is it? There's so many.
Can we look at your website, and would they be listed there?
I feel like and Colin Callahan, right? And so, like, it's an interesting thing, but the reason that anyone could ever look at me to say I'm successful, they have to look back at that team. They're the reason why. I was like, tell me I didn't forget anybody.
I'm looking on your site, see if I can find
no,
it.
I did forget someone. Brooke Janes, who's my personal executive assistant. So she makes life very easy for me.
We got Fernanda, right?
Check.
Brooke.
Check.
Lionel.
Check.
Chelsea.
Yep.
We've already talked about Colin, the founder.
Yes.
And Dan. So, yeah, I think we got them all.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Thank you for the opportunity, because I really, they're fantastic. Couldn't ask for better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've started a number of businesses myself, and none of them would have been nearly as successful as they were without the team behind me. So yeah, you got to give credit where credit's due. Nobody is running this race by themselves.
No.
It seems like there's a big emphasis on innovation at Acklen. What are maybe some unique approaches or innovations that your team's introduced that have had a substantial impact for your clients?
One big one that stands out to me is being able to provide flex teams so that, like, I know that in our past, if you wanted a team, we were saying, hey, you have to have all these people on your team. And then we started to explore how, like, we were listening to our clients and stuff that they needed. And we were like, we can build flex teams because every single client's needs are not the same. So we can't like just put it down, put that team that we have pre-built into a client when really they need certain things. And so we were able to come up with this flex team model that if you perhaps had your UX UI design team, but you needed to have the devs and the DevOps and like some other, BA, QA, we could add those things to you, or you needed just like a team of QA, or you needed a team of designers. So we ended up doing that which proved out to be really good. It brought in, like, I feel like our mix of like someone who has clients who have a full stack team versus like flex team is like maybe a quarter of our total clients have needed or need a flex team and that they're utilizing currently.
How do you find most of your clients, or how do they find you?
Man, that is like the golden like answer. If I had all those answers, we've started putting a lot more into our marketing, top of funnel research. But I could tell you, like, prior to me coming here, the company had one salesperson, and she did a fantastic job. But all of that was like her secret sauce to things, and so there wasn't process behind it. And so this year we have really torn down everything and rebuilt up with the new CRO and account executives and how we get out into the market. So I don't know if I have the best answer for that, other than one of the things that we have been focusing on is audience-based research. Like, how are we going to get in front of those folks that, like, maybe people don't open emails? How do we get in front of them? What do they like? Do they like a webinar? So we're trying to figure out how to get in front of them and then use AI to craft our message to those personas that we have. So I feel like I don't have the best answer for that. But if you find somebody who does, I would love to talk to them. But it's ever changing. Things change, and you have to figure out how you change with your client and their needs.
Would it be safe to say that, a fair bit of the clients have just come by word of mouth?
I think in the past they absolutely have. And we built a really strong partnership agreement with some key people where, if they're talking to somebody, they refer them to us. Like, I feel like it's almost like if you get the conversation going and we get in front of that client, they will see value in it immediately because that's what we want them to see. Is get them to their value, to their revenues as fast as possible, but just starting that from our first interaction.
As a company that's on the front edge of all things tech, I'm curious what you're most excited about when it comes to AI. Or open the door to say most concerned about.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of like both. And I think, I attended a conference that they were just focusing on AI. And when I walked into that conference, it was back in September. And I walked in that conference, I felt like as a company, we were behind. That I was like, man, we're behind. I'm not really sure what direction we're supposed to take. I'm just here to kind of hear people out and see where they were. Walking away from that conference, I realized that we're not behind, that many people are trying to figure out how this is going to help their company or, help their company bring in revenue. And even the early adopters are still figuring that out. So I felt like I was in a good place. I left that, though, understanding that AI is not meant to replace people. It is meant to improve the services that we were already doing. And so I kind of took that approach with my senior leadership team. We built up a committee that we will launch. We kind of pre-launched it at the end of this year, but really going in full force in January. But our sales uses it already to find prospects. Our CFO is looking at how to like what kind of tool we can use in AI that will help us with structured data and unstructured data and what's best to use. In our development and our delivery, trying to figure out how AI can help us do those things that are timely, like penetration testing or something like that. So we're literally trying to go department to department to see how it will help us be better at what we already do. Like we're on the very beginnings of figuring that out, but I don't feel late.
What kinds of requests, if any, are you getting from the client side as it pertains to AI?
I think general questions in terms of like, how are we using it? Like, what are we using in terms of our development? I'm not getting a ton of questions from our clients in terms of like, how are we using it to develop? Like the things that concern me around that, like what are the legalities of those things? Like is a percentage of, if we use AI as a percentage of, developing code, is it belong to us, or those types of things are other things that worried me, as well as incentivize me that we weren't behind. But like, how are we managing it? How do we manage it in legality with our clients? How much do we have to divulge if we decide to use it in more of our development work? So I'm just figuring it out. But I feel like we have not had a ton of people that are like, how are you using AI? Like we haven't had a ton of questions around it.
That's interesting. It surprises me a little bit. I was talking with a friend of mine recently who's an experienced developer, and he was saying one of the things that he really liked about using AI in the coding work is that previously he might spend a lot of time searching on like GitHub or other platforms looking for, a chunk of code that could execute some small portion of what he did, and sometimes he's got to pay a licensing fee for that. Lots of times he's got to give credit or share the modifications that he makes to the code. But when he goes and he uses an AI tool and asks for help sort of creating the same thing, it just sort of frees up all of that extra administrative work. But you hit on an interesting question here, and I'm wondering if you've ever gotten to the bottom of it, is who owns that code? Like, are you free to use that yourself? Do you have to give attribution to ChatGPT? Is there any clarity with this?
Not yet. Like literally September, and then we put our committee together. But that's the thing that worries me the most. Before I unleash it, everybody's using it. Your folks, your teams, they're using it in many different ways, right? I used it the other day to like try to create a JD I wanted to see, right? And it worked out beautifully. But before we have to provide guidance to the company and all of its users on how we're saying that we're going to use it before I unleash it to an entire company without understanding the legalities of that. But I've just connected with other folks who have more information about it, more direction and thoughts about how we handle it that I just haven't connected with. And we won't till the beginning of the year.
No.
Yeah.
What's the future look like for Acklen Avenue? Are there growth plans? You want to get into new industries? Paint a picture here.
Definitely growth. I think you touched a little bit on innovation before. And I think when I think about innovation, it's a very used term, but when I think about it for us, it is literally testing out theories that we have to be able to support our customers even more than we have. And when I say that, I mean are there things that we're already doing, but they have a need? For instance, if they're using multiple dev teams or multiple agile teams, does somebody else have that and they're just also using Indian teams, and they need like a person that's a liaison between the US in their company and the Indian team? Or it's like with the flex thing that came up as a need, where the customer's like, I don't need all these people. But I think we've developed this thing where any opportunity that we see that's coming from a client, we want to test it and see if it makes sense for us. Like, are there other things that we need to be thinking about? Should we be, one of our clients needed us to, they were using someone who was like just wanting just in time support. They would pay like a number of hours. We didn't do that. We built a small model. They loved it, right? And then now we have another service that we can now go explore out with other clients. So that's kind of, we're definitely on a growth trajectory.
Have you ever done or ever thought about building your own SaaS products? Like, do you see needs when working with your clients? It's like, oh, like that's a tool that everybody would be able to use.
Yeah, I feel like our team is like really gung ho on us exploring that because they talk about it all the time. But the reality of it for us right now is like, coming into Acklen, doubling up the revenue, all of that, so many changes that have happened that I feel like that could probably be a conversation that we need to have going into 2025. Because I feel like we're more set to have it.
I mean, you're talking about a whole different business model.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the skills and you have the front row seat, into a lot of client needs, into a lot of industry needs, to where you can probably say, wow, this is a tool that not only would fintech use, but manufacturing could tie into as well. But it is a different business model. Once you build it, then you've got to ramp it and you got to sell it.
And I know, Colin, there's a big concern in whatever we do to try to keep it what we call the Acklen way, but exploring different ways, exploring different ways to be the Acklen way, I think is what we're trying to do while maintaining who we've always been.
How would you sum up what the Acklen way is?
Help first. It's help first, and it's whether we help first a client, a potential client, a person at work. It is help first. That's the mentality. I don't know a better way to say it than that.
My very first business back in mid to late 90s, we were doing web development. So we were in the tech space. And my business partner, one of the smartest guys I've ever known, very smart on the tech side. He's like, I hate sales. I don't want to do sales. And then he would get into a sales meeting and be phenomenal because he did exactly what you talked about, Stephanie. It was all about helping. He came from an educational background. And so, he would ask a lot of questions to sort of, get to what the client needs were. And then, hey, here's some different solutions that could work for you. And you know what? It's not the $50,000 price tag that you were thinking. There's an off the shelf tool that you could put into place that it's going to cost a few $100. And that cemented relationships so strongly that people would just come back again and again as they had future needs. And I'm going to assume that what I'm describing here is exactly what is going on in Acklen at a much bigger scale.
All the time. When we hit a sales, when we had low sales, we hit that sales crunch, and I feel like a lot of companies did. We all considered ourselves. One of the things we talked about was consider all of us are salespeople, right? We're all going to sell. However, for me, it's more about conversations and relationship building. And it's